Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the midweek edition of The Yard, it's actually Tuesday night. I'll be traveling much of the day on Wednesday. We got to get down to Hattiesburg for the All-Star practices. Had to move that around because we're getting Jeff Lebby Wednesday morning. So here we are. So we got a lot to talk about. A lot has happened since we have been together. Many of you unhappy. Some of you maybe a little bit unaffected, but we'll talk about some of that because I think it's important for us to kind of work through this together. And I've got some opinions that I want to share about recent news out of Starkville. But good things are ahead of us. I firmly believe that. Sometimes things don't always make sense to me and to you as well, right? And that's part of it. As we have said many times over the years, players, coaches at times come and go. You and I are always here. We're always here. That's where the family is. And at times we have a member of our family that has to go do something else. And it's not always a popular decision, and nor should it be, right? I mean, when one of our own is impacted in what we believe is a negative way, we're going to have an emotional reaction. It's just how things are. Life moves on. Everybody finds something else to do. But it's not something we're going to make light of, but it's also, too, something we're going to have to accept. A lot of other changes going around in the world of college football. Learned earlier today and shared with our friend Matt Zenitz, confirmed behind the scenes, so we were to break that news, that former Mississippi State defensive coordinator Coleman Hutzler is now going to coach edge rushers at the University of Auburn. He is a guy that has a relationship with DJ Durkin, and so it kind of makes sense there. And hey, good for Mississippi State too that he finds a job that mitigates some of that buyout. But listen, we appreciate Coleman Hutzler and his attempts to do some great things at Mississippi State. It fell short of his expectations and certainly our expectations, but wish him the best over there. And we got some spots we got to fill on our own coaching staff, and that's something that we're spending a lot of time researching and working the phones to try to get you guys some information. And you can follow all of the goings-on behind the scenes over at genespage.com. You can get that 50% off the annual subscription price and get your questions answered directly. I don't answer all questions on Twitter for that reason. I don't come to your business and expect to eat for free all the time. Free meal wasn't hurt every now and again, though. But all that understood, I'm always very appreciative of everybody that comes our way and shares the path with us for a while. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. It's never a personal thing. I would submit that if any of you ever met Coleman Hutzler, that you would really like him. You would. He's a great guy. And you'd enjoy having a chance to kind of talk football with him. Very, very, very high-energy guy. But it didn't work out here. And one of my immediate concerns once we announced that hire is that Coleman Hutzler had spent time at Texas and spent time at Alabama, and we were going to run basically Alabama schemes. And one of the things that I have said countless times in my career, you can't run Alabama schemes without Alabama talent and expect to get Alabama results. And we certainly have not had Alabama talent the last couple of years. Most years we don't. And I think at Mississippi State we have to be a little bit different and creative to get ahead in football. And so I think if you come in here and say this has always worked for me, well, it's always worked for you because you had superior talent. And when you've got the best players, the scheme itself isn't nearly as important. You can run a lot of base defense and just let your athletes go make plays. At Mississippi State, at times we're going to be on the downside of the talent differential, so we've got to have some things in our scheme that kind of plays to our own strengths. And I think that was one of the things that kind of eluded Coleman Hutzler. And we weren't the same. After that fourth quarter in the Texas game, we just absolutely were not the same defense. I don't know if people just had gotten enough film on us and saw what they could exploit. Injuries always played a factor too, but the reality of it is it was just simply unsuccessful. And so whatever bitterness that we hold in our hearts toward Coleman Hutzler, we should let that go. It's just wasted energy. We wish him the best. We don't play Auburn for a while. And maybe he can help us kind of indirectly doing a good job at Auburn against some teams that allow us to get up the postseason pecking order. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. We love Bulldog Burger Company, and we have for a long, long time, basically since they opened. Again, I think Hey Dad and I were among the first 1,000 customers, maybe less than that. We were in there like day one, day two. And it was great, and we felt like then, hey, this place is going to make it. The variety on the menu is great. The service was great, even way back in the beginning before they kind of worked the kinks out. Well, now it's kind of like a well-oiled machine. And I can tell you that from personal experience, but also, too, because my youngest son, Ian, has been there for 3 years, absolutely loves working for them. They have treated him incredibly well. And it's not because he's my son. It's because that's the quality of business and the operation that they run there. He has been extremely happy there and very happy that he's had the chance to kind of learn how to work there, right? I mean, that's what we do. You learn responsibility and things of that nature when you go get a job in high school or college. That's where America goes to work, typically in the food service industry. And nobody's doing it better than Bulldog Burger Company. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Richmond Flowood area. Have the spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. Find your own favorites on the menu. If you're a newbie to Bulldog Burger Company, I would suggest starting with the Bulldog. You can never go wrong just with the Bulldog Burger. But if you want to branch out a little bit, walk on the wild side. Maybe get the smokehouse. Maybe get the pimentology, add bacon. That's the Boneyard special. Maybe get the Bryant, the Lauren, the Fresh and 15. A lot of great burgers on there to choose from. And maybe you're not feeling a burger today, but everybody else is. One of the reasons that I go to Bulldog Burger Company is for that great BLT salad. It is my favorite salad on the planet. I get it grilled. You may like it fried. I'm not judging. But either way, I'm getting it doused with ranch dressing. You get that chocolate shake to go. You can ride that ride home with a smile. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. Okay. No doubt word has reached you by now that Coach Chad Bumphis not expected to be with us next year. And it is something that has been in the wind for some time. Now, when I first began to hear this, it was just kind of fan chatter. People that were concerned. I mean, it wasn't just people like running to a message board or social media. It was like people are like, hey, man, I'm kind of hearing some things. Can you dig into this? Because we all care about Chad. And before we get deep into this, let me just tell you this. I love Chad Bumphis. I have known him since he was 16 years old. I stood on the table and fought for him to get 4 stars from Scout.com. I didn't have to do a lot of convincing, though, because the tape was outstanding. Chad, not the biggest guy, but he was an explosive receiver, and at times played some quarterback at Tupelo High School as a position of need. Chris Garrett goes down, Bump kind of jumps in there, makes some things happen under Coach Eric Collins. So Bump and I go back a ways. And even after he left Mississippi State, he got jobs at Austin Peay, and then, of course, on the Utah, we maintained a relationship, and when he would need to know about recruits in our area, guys he thought he could get, I was more than happy to help him. And I always will be happy to help him. Because Chad's one of us. And as the news kind of began to matriculate yesterday, it was pretty obvious that these rumors that had kind of persisted for some time, weeks, were true. And I don't like it. I don't understand it. But I've got to accept it. Nobody's bigger than a program. Not me, not you, not an assistant coach, not Jeff Lebby, not Zach Selman, not Dr. Mark Keenum. Nobody is bigger than the institution. Nobody is bigger than the program. But I really felt like Chad would kind of be our Trooper Taylor. You know what I mean? Like the guy that's always here. The guy that even when coaching changes, he becomes your transition coach. He hangs in there, keeps your recruiting class together, and becomes an institution at the institution. That's what I hoped. And I remember, And Chad will back me up on this. Chad was trying to come home. And Dave Nickel had left to go to USC, and we weren't quite sure what was going to happen. And I called Mike Leach myself, and I said, hey, this is a guy that's going to help us. He was one of our most beloved players of this generation. He will do a great job in recruiting. Young people know who he is. He has credibility in the room and credibility within the state. And he's a Bulldog through and through. And it didn't work out the way we wanted it to then, okay? And I want to make sure that everybody understands this wasn't a situation where, like, Chad's turning down a job at his alma mater. Chad was already a Power 4 wide receiver coach. And Leach pretty much had his mind made up to hire Drew Hollingshead. The guy he had been grooming for some time to take over that position. So I don't begrudge anybody for things not working out in 2022. No, nobody's at fault there. It just didn't work. The timing wasn't right. And had we brought him in, perhaps after Mike Leach passed away and, we decided to gut the offense, Bump may have been out then. And so when Zach Arnett hired him in 2023, I thought, and I think many of you did too, well, we finally get our guy home. We finally get our hero home because he was doing a good job at Utah, and we're like, man, this stinks, man. We got our guy up there. You're competing for Pac-12 championships. We got an opening here. It just made perfect sense to us. And so he joins that staff, and then Bump gets a chance to stay home. And I remember as things were kind of coming together in the hiring of Jeff Lebby, Bump reached out and said, hey, I'm going to make sure that I talk to Coach Lev. And he did, and then he's able to stay on. It was the first hire of the staff. And now 2 years later, he's gone. I don't know all the particulars. I hear things, but at the end of the day, they all mean the same thing. And one of the things that I want to assure you right now, before anybody goes and gets on social media, and I've already seen a lot of emotional reaction, good and bad, which is kind of unfortunate. But like, there's no scandal coming, right? Like, there's not going to be an arrest. You're not going to be. There's nothing. No NCAA. There's nothing like that. Okay. And I'm not going to ever say anything negative about Chad Bumphis. And quite honestly, I'm going to continue to defend Chad Bumphis when people begin to say things. Somebody on my own message board kind of made a joke at Chad's expense, I thought, and I said, hey, this is not a laughing matter. And it's not. And I love Chad, love his family, and wish him the absolute best in life. I've started from some of you. I haven't gone out and confirmed this, but some of you have said, hey, he's going to join Dan Mullen at UNLV. And I say thank God for that, man. I think that would be great for both parties, for Dan and for Chad. They've got a working relationship. Obviously, Chad knows the Mullen scheme. He knows the Mullen expectations. I think it would be great for Chad. If he's not going to be here, I'd want him to be there. Absolutely. I think all you guys would agree. And again, that's some fan chatter, and I hope that you're correct. I absolutely hope that you're correct because I think you go back to this, the very first play of the Dan Mullen era. Remember what it was? It's Chad Bumphis throwing a pass to O'Neal Wilder. Fell incomplete, but I think it shows what Dan Mullen thought of Chad Bumphis, even as a true freshman. And he was also trying to send a message to all of you that we weren't going to run the West Coast offense anymore. We were going to be innovative. We were going to be aggressive. And I thought it set the tone for the Dan Mullen era. And I think it's very special that it was Chad Bumphis that threw that pass. But at the end of the day, Jeff Lebby is my football coach. Okay, he is. And I've got to trust that he is making the best decisions for Mississippi State. There are going to be things that happen that I don't understand, and there's going to be things at times that I don't necessarily agree with. But Jeff is our coach. And I got to hope that he knows what he's doing. And I know that Jeff has got his own reasonings. I think he's got to hit a home run with this wide receiver hire, right, to curry some favor with the fan base. But Jeff Lebby was hired to run the football program. And a guy made a comment on my message board, too, that you can access if you're a member at genespage.com, the True Maroon board. And if you're not, you should be. And again, 50% off the annual price. That gets you all the way through next football season. But he made a comment. He goes, yeah, it's clear that Lebby is not listening to the donors with the hiring of Zach Arnett and the moving on from Coach Bumphis. And I responded, nor should he. Jeff Lebby should not listen to donors, fans, and outside voices to run the football program. If we are going to run the program, then we don't need an athletic director or a coach. We'll just hire somebody to do a Twitter poll and we'll all just call plays, but we'll all just vote, right? When people are in positions of leadership, they have to be given autonomy. I mean, you go back and you think back, even in the early days of Dan Mullen, Dan didn't have a huge network of coaches to pull from. The Mississippi State administration had to help him kind of put a staff together. Mark Husband was a university hire. And I love HUD and I love Tyler. I do. I love them so much. And I was so glad I got to see them earlier this football season. Went down and saw Theodore play Gulf Shores High School. And got to see my buddy and his beautiful wife. And I love them. I do. And HUD's another guy that loves Bump, right? Les Kenning was a university hire. He was the guy that Rocky Falker and some other knew. And I love Les Kenning. I've met Big Les and I love Little Les. And when I went out to cover the Texas High School 7-on-7 tournament at College Station, Texas, Les Kenning, the one said, hey, when you get there, tell them that you know me and Big Les. Guys, I didn't buy a Gatorade the rest of the weekend, right? I mean, that's how the esteemed these people are. And then Carl Torbush was a university hire. So we've gone through this thing before, and it took Mullen a while to kind of get his guys. He had some guys on offense, but defensively we had to put some things together for him. But Lebby is kind of in a similar boat, and that's kind of the danger of hiring a first-time head coach. And that's part of the issue too. When that first-time head coach maybe gets under a little fire and you have some adversity, sometimes people are reluctant to make a move when they feel like that maybe perhaps you're going to enter next season on the hot seat. And so it kind of complicates your ability to fill out your staff, especially people that have teenage kids. It's one thing when the kids are in elementary school, but it's another thing when they're in high school and you got prom and homecoming. Those final high school memories mean so much. And we've encountered some of that too. There's some people are like, hey, I'd love to come, but my kids are sophomores and juniors in high school, and I don't want to have to move them and then something go wrong next year and I got to move them twice. I got to think about that. And that's something to consider. Now, the flip side of that is, and this is where I'm a lot different than a lot of other people, right? Now, I've got a wife too, and she has a lot to say. But if somebody offered me those jobs, I would never think in terms of failure. You know what I'm saying? I would never think, well, what if it doesn't turn around? Am I going to get fired and have to go find another job next year? I will give you a couple of examples. I'm not going to belabor the point long. But when I was in the furniture business, got moved around a lot. I was kind of Mr. Fix-It. I'd spend about 18 months at the store, kind of get it profitable again, get the staff trained, and then go to the next one. And I loved it. I loved being able to stick and move. My kids were younger then. We could do it. And then I had to go run the 21st worst store out of 646. And I never at any point said, well, what if this doesn't work out? Am I going to be out of a job? Number one, I knew that I was a valuable employee and they would take care of me. But more importantly, I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could go turn that store around. And we did. In less than a year's time, we had the store making money. We had the store growing. The store got a complete refresh. Had a very well-trained staff. And when I turned that store over to the next manager, that it continued. And then from there, I went and ran the 7th worst store in the company out of 700 stores. And we saved that one too. And so anybody that is thinking before they take the job, what if we fail, is not somebody that we want. And I understand the family aspect of things. And I understand happy wife, happy life. But if you truly believe in yourself, and you believe in your system, and you believe in your personnel, and you believe in your God-given talent, you would never approach a situation with an exit strategy. So we don't want those coaches. We don't want those guys that think, what if I have to move again next year? That tells me you don't have any confidence in your ability. That's the split level communication as I interpret it. When you hire a coach and he's thinking if then we can't hire him. We can't. I don't care for what position it is. I don't care for what salary it is. If they're coming in thinking about plan B, I can't hire them. It's got to be just like, was it Pizarro? I think it was. Or Cortez, one of those great explorers. I'm sure I'm getting it wrong. But, they went to the new land and burned the boats. There's no turning back. You can't work through life worrying about running it back. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking this up right now because I don't want to be wrong. Because some of you may want to go, maybe you don't know the story. Let's see here. Let's see, who was it that said it? Yeah, it was Cortez. Yeah, Hernan Cortez, once they landed, said burn the boats because we're not going back. We're not failing. And I want somebody with a burn the boats mentality. I don't want somebody showing up here thinking, well, let's not buy, let's just rent. I'm moving in lock, stock, and barrel because I know I'm not going to fail. Those are my thinkings. That's my belief. Maybe you see life a little bit differently. But when I take jobs, and I hope you're the same way, I am completely sold out. Completely sold out. That we're going to make this thing successful. Period. And I'd like to tell you that it's always worked out. It hadn't always worked out. There have been some times things just that maybe I didn't jive with a staff somewhere. But the thing that I knew is that if people listened to me, I had a tried and true system that could get stores back to profitability. And I suspect that the right defensive coordinator and the right receivers coach, the right defensive line coach, and whatever else we choose to hire, you accept this job, you accept the risk. And I've never really wanted a job that was a cush job. I like to be challenged. And this is a very challenging operation at Mississippi State. Now, Jeff Lebby's a guy that can score. Now, let's be fair about this. I think most of us would agree we were probably a little bit too married to the Blake Shapen deal, right? Nothing against Blake. Blake bled and sweat and worked hard for this program. Appreciate his contributions to Mississippi State, but there were some times, obviously, later in the year, things just kind of weren't working, and we probably should have went to KT. We all said it. We all felt it. Some of you more demonstrative than others. And now all of a sudden you got KT out there in the Egg Bowl. And I wrote a story, free story, you can go read it, about Micah Nickerson. I interviewed him today. Hadn't had a chance to sit down and call him since signing day. I've been so busy. And just have him detail why he chose Mississippi State. And like Braylon Womack, one of the things he said is Camario Taylor. These young people know who Camario is. And they see the magic he is putting out on that field. And that's why I think it's so incredibly important for us to go win this bowl game. And maybe Camario wins MVP, right? Because I think it's going to give us a tremendous amount of momentum going into the recruiting cycle for next year, for the 2027 cycle. Ole Miss got the playoff game, right? So this gives us an opportunity. It's not a game of the same magnitude, but it gives us another opportunity to showcase KT. And again, you look at the Ole Miss situation, you don't know what that roster is going to look like next year. It's going to be a new staff and all this kind of stuff. I think it gives us a chance to kind of pull some spotlight our way. You're not going to negate the fact that Ole Miss is in the playoff. But it gives you an opportunity to get back on the field with the Magic Man and say, hey, don't forget about us. Their guy's leaving. He's going to need a waiver to try to get another year. And those eligibility cases are just, you never know how they're going to go. But KT's going to be here. So we're building around him. And I think for in-state recruits in Mississippi, when you see a guy with the esteem and prestige of Braylon Womack, who was last year's Gatorade Player of the Year. He was honored as the MAIS 4A Player of the Year just yesterday. I think you begin to kind of realize the drawing power that Camario Taylor can have. And so you go back a little bit. Yes, we played him some when Blake got banged up, but you begin to think about this aspect of things. When you've got a guy that has that level of charisma and the magnetism, recruits respond to that. You go back and think about the Dak effect, right? We talked about that way back when. Guys are like, you know what, Dak's doing some big things. And Braylon Womack said, I saw Dak Prescott take over the world of college football. I saw Mississippi State go to number 1. So I know we can do it again. And I think most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, as much as we love Dak, we can agree Camario Taylor is the better athlete. Dak Prescott was a guy early on, was kind of a package guy too. Then he developed. And to be honest with you, if Dak Prescott doesn't come back for 2015, I don't think he's a starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he needed that year to kind of refine the passing element of his game. And it got better when he got into pros. No question about it. I mean, he's the all-time passing leader in the history of the Dallas Cowboys program. But I don't think that happens if he doesn't come back for 15. And I think that's something that probably should be sold a little bit more. And I got a friend of mine that pointed this out to me. If you look at the guys that have been drafted high and are doing exceptionally well, they're guys that played like their last 2 years with the same program. They're guys that played on as seniors with the same coaching staff. So if you start thinking about the fact Camario is a freshman and he could potentially be a 3-year starter here, and granted, if he has a great junior year, we may lose him, but that's really, doesn't that make it even better to bring the next guy in? If Camario Taylor comes in here, kind of the next Dak, right? And that he has a good enough 2 years as your starter that he is worthy of being selected early in the NFL draft. Yeah, I'd love to have him all 3 years, but there's a part of me too, I begin to think about what's better for the program, right? You have that guy come in here and he reaches the NFL, then it makes it that much easier to recruit quarterbacks. And my hope and expectation is that Jeff Lebby will be here the entire way through. So I share those things with you because I think it's important for everybody to understand. And one of the things that I'm going to say, too, about the Zach Arnett situation, too, and there are some people out there was like some internet chatter about some things. Guys, we chased that. And I had a friend in the industry when all that stuff kind of came out about this Wendy's thing. Tried to get a police report from the Vegas Police Department, and no such document existed because no arrest was made and there was no incident report. Now, this is Las Vegas, Nevada we're talking about, right? This isn't, the Stone County Sheriff's Department, and that's not taking a shot at the folks in Wiggins. I love those folks down there, right? This is not some small-town Mississippi thing. It's like, well, we better retire this to the file. You think the Vegas Police Department cares what happens at UNLV? Of course not. They deal with that kind of chicanery all the time. And what we have found out is that basically Zach Arnett and Dan Mullen had some very serious philosophical differences. There was no incident. It was a situation where somebody was involved. They'd brought somebody else in, working on some different schematic things. He and Arnett didn't see eye to eye. He went to Mullen. He and Mullen didn't see eye to eye. Here we are. Zach Arnett loved Starkville, loves Mississippi State. Zach Arnett's going to come in here with a chip on his shoulder. He's getting a second chance. And I talked to somebody today that, I'm not going to tell you the name, but somebody that was part of the staff for 3 years and then didn't hang around for the Arnett year. And I said, tell me your honest thoughts. He said, personally, I didn't stay on. So I got to separate my personal feelings from my professional feelings. He goes, I would love to have stayed on. But on the professional side of things, let me tell you this, Zach Arnett can coach the devil out of some defense. And he goes, I feel incredibly sorry for the first quarterback that faces Mississippi State next year because Zach Arnett has been chomping at the bit to dial up a blitz and take somebody's quarterback to their knees. He said, you better get ready for it. He said, you guys are probably going to get the best version of Zach that's ever existed because now he knows what it's like to lose face in this whole thing. And it's taken him all of this time to kind of get back to where he wanted to be to get his career back on track. He said that guy's not going to back away from that challenge. That guy's not going to go down there and think, well, okay, this will just kind of give me another job. He said Zach Arnett's going in there to stay. Zach Arnett's going in there to prove himself. That fires me up. Listen, just like all of you, the 2023 year was difficult. It was difficult. We had gone to bowl games 13 straight years, and all of a sudden we're playing good defense in 2023, but we can't score. That hadn't been a problem for us, but we couldn't score. And so the bowl streak gets snapped. We have a very talented group of seniors that leave without having the benefit of a bowl game. We lose the golden egg. I mean, the whole thing was just miserable. And then, of course, there was more misery in 2024. But I'm on board with this hire. And one of the main reasons why is I think Zach Arnett's got enough belief in his ability. He can go in here and get some things done. He's ready to burn the boats. All right, time for our Close with Blair Player O' the Day. And it's going to be a couple of guys. It's going to be Fluff Bothwell and Kelly Jones. We'll talk about more about why it's them. On the other side of the spot, Blair Chandler is my friend, your friend, our collective friend in the mortgage industry. His phone number, since we're friends, you should have it, 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. And that's Blair's personal cell. It goes directly to him, not to a call center or a receptionist or anything like that. It goes directly to Blair. You can call or text today. Get his 25 years of experience and know-how working for you. Perhaps the dream of homeownership has eluded you in the past. Maybe you weren't ready, or maybe you just didn't have a mortgage professional being your advocate with underwriting. Blair knows how to structure loans to give you the best chance of approval. He can get you that pre-qualification letter. That is a life hack nobody talks to you about. I'm telling you, you want to see your real estate agent go into orbit, get that pre-qualification letter. And those folks in real estate will tell you, I'm telling you the truth. They know exactly what you're shopping for within your means then. But closetheblair.com, that's the way to go. Find more information about his services, whether you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home. Blair Chandler, the only name to know. And if you need that game day condo, perhaps it's more affordable than you think, be sure and ask. Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. Okay, by the time many of you listen to this, and we're going to talk about this later in the show. It's my show. I'll do it when I want to. But December the 10th, 1991. First day of sobriety. And so 34 years ago tonight, I was getting high. I was getting drunk. And it was a difficult night. The next day, I got arrested. And things changed, and it proved to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And so we'll talk a little more about that before we get out of here. But I'll be in Hattiesburg, which is where I go to pick up my chips. It's where I made my stand. There's great recovery in Hattiesburg. If you're fortunate enough to live in that area, you don't know what the benefits you have and the knowledge and wisdom in those rooms. It can help you stay clean and sober. But 34 years clean and sober as of December 10th. And so we're going to do top 10 rockers in recovery, and there's some big names on this list, and some artists that may surprise you. Mike McCready from Pearl Jam didn't make the list, though he probably deserved to. Neil Young, Pete Townsend, Elton John, David Bowie, God rest his soul. A lot of people in recovery that live to tell the tale because they found recovery from substance abuse. But some of these names on this list will likely surprise you. But we're going to celebrate their music, and I'll give you a little bit about what I know about some of these folks. We're going to start number 10. Faster Pussycat. Tammy Down, our friend. Been sober, I think, 8 years now. And he's got a policy. Nobody in the band can drink before the show. They can drink afterwards. And Tammy, after the show, almost immediately goes to the bus. Doesn't tempt himself. And he has turned his life around. Of course, this year is a very difficult one for him, but he managed to stay clean and sober. And, Danny, Chad, all those guys, I love them. But we're going to go with Nonstop to Nowhere. And that's a song that came. I was in recovery when the album Whipped came out. Didn't know them then, just liked them and looked up to them and inspired by their music. But Nonstop to Nowhere is a great track. And that's kind of where I was headed. And you guys know a lot of my story, but it's one of those songs that has always kind of stood out to me. Number 9, we're going Slipknot because of Corey Taylor. Corey Taylor is among the most vocal rockers in recovery these days. He speaks out, has a lot of influence with young people, and talks about the importance of living a life of recovery and chasing your dreams in the right way. And Corey, again, very, very, very almost militant about recovery. And I've had the opportunity to see some video of when he spoke. I've never met him. I hope to someday. But he has a very inspiring story. He started drugs and alcohol at a very young age and went through some abuse as a child. And it kind of comes out in the music. So we're going to go Slipknot's Nero Forte, which is my favorite Slipknot song. If you know it, you enjoy it. Number 8. So Red Hot Chili Peppers, and everybody in this band is in recovery now. And Dave Navarro was on the One Hot Minute album, and he was still doing heroin back then. That's the reason that the relationship did not continue. John Frusciante, of course, was still kind of finding himself, but everybody's in recovery now. And Anthony Kiedis wrote a book called Scar Tissue. Again, it's right to my right. Hadn't had a chance to read it yet. Flea is in recovery. Chad is in recovery. And there's on Blood Sugar Sex Magic, there's the great track Under the Bridge. And that's a song about addiction. That's a song about Anthony Kiedis kind of being at the lowest point of his life. And that album, of course, really kind of made them superstars. Number 7, I don't know that Axl's in recovery, but Duff and Slash are. And Slash has documented that in his biography. They were a band, obviously, that was the genuine article at a time when the 80s metal scene was getting a little bit, maybe a little bit too Revlon rockerish. But all of a sudden, Guns N' Roses shows up, and they're the real deal, right? They're the genuine article. And people responded to that level of authenticity. And going back to Appetite for Destruction, we're going to go with Night Train today, which is a song about excess. But it's incredible how it saved their lives when they's like, you know what, hey, I got to turn this thing around. And Duff McKagan was also involved with trying to save the life of Kurt Cobain, even though Kurt Cobain had railed against Guns N' Roses. Remember that video, Music Award things, where he's like, hi, Axl, and Dave Grohl and them are kind of making fun of Guns N' Roses. And then there's Duff McKagan trying to save the guy's life. Guy AMA's from treatment and happens to run into Duff McKagan, and one of the guys that he tried to make fun of tried to save his life. All right, number 6 on the list, it's Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. And he had a series of overdoses in the early 2000s that it changed him as a person. And a lot of that, too, is he said he knew that he was going to die if he didn't change. And he was one of those kinds of people, kind of like Brent Smith. Brent Smith from Shinedown's in recovery, too. They didn't make the list and probably should have. But Trent said he felt like he couldn't create without the use of narcotics. And then he found out that he could. But we're going to go back to the beginning. One of the most depressing songs that I've ever heard. And I think in many respects it mirrors what it's like to be an addiction. It's something I can never have off Pretty Hate Machine. Number 5. This is a band that has been touched by alcoholism and drug addiction. Rick Allen, of course, the drummer, lost his arm in a drunk driving accident. Learned to play the drums with one arm and pedals and things of that nature, and the band continued on. And then, of course, Steve Clark, God rest his soul, Steve died of an alcohol overdose. Phil Collin stopped drinking before Steve did, and it killed Steve. So Joe Elliott and I think Rick Allen, but I know that Phil Collin and Joe Elliott are both very open about their recovery. So we're going to go Def Leppard's Photograph for your number 5 song. Number 4, and of course we've recently lost him, but Ozzy, in and out of rehab several times, found a life of recovery, as did guitarist Zakk Wylde. Zakk is very open about his recovery and about how it saved his life, and had multiple near-death type experiences. So we're going to go with the first album that was recorded without the influence of chemical substances. We're going Ozzy's No More Tears. And of course, Mike Inez was part of that band, and now he's part of our number 3 band on our list. Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, been clean and sober since 2003. And you begin to think about this band, and you go back to Facelift and Dirt. There's a lot of recovery lingo within the lyrics of those songs, like the track The Real Thing, which I think is a hidden gem on Facelift. I grew up, went into rehab. Those doctors never did me no good. They said, son, you're going to be a new man. I said, thank you very much. Can I borrow $50? So there was a lot of early recovery talk. Pink Cloud is now turned to gray. That's on Angry Chair. But a lot of the songs that Lane sung were written by Jerry. And the one we're going to go with is an incredible song, and I think in some respects maybe the quintessential Alice in Chains song, and it is a song about recovery. And it's about quitting drugs, and it's Would. If I would, could you? Number 2, another one of the most vocal recovery advocates in the rock and roll community, and he's been doing it better than just about anybody since the 70s, and it's Alice Cooper. And it's interesting because when Alice Cooper played in Tupelo, I had somebody invite me to an impromptu AA meeting that Alice Cooper was going to be there. And then, it was in the middle of COVID, they canceled the meeting because of COVID issues. They just didn't want to run the chance. So I missed my chance to meet Alice Cooper. I have some friends in recovery that have met him and sat in meetings with him, and I've got one that even played golf with him. Super cool, but a song about kind of an anti-drug song. It's Hey Stupid. Yeah, and it's kind of a message to young rockers. It's like, what are you trying to prove? All this stuff's been done before. Everybody before you has walked that same path, and you're being stupid, But number 1, my favorite rock star of all time, and has been for much of my life, and it's Nikki Sixx. I didn't go with a Motley song because there's some songs in the 6 a.m. catalog that are specifically about recovery. One of my favorite ones is This Is Gonna Hurt. And that's a song about recovery. Because it is going to hurt. It is. It's going to be the most difficult thing you've ever done. It's also going to be the most rewarding thing you've ever done. But the song that I think really kind of typifies Nikki Sixx's belief about recovery is the great track Life is Beautiful. And one of the things that we learned years ago is that reality is for people that can't take dope, right? Nikki Sixx obviously nearly overdosed multiple times, and that ultimately did and died for some time, and then got a couple shots of adrenaline to his heart, thus the song Kickstart My Heart. But Life is Beautiful, I think, is one of those songs too that when I am feeling down, it is a song that kind of lifts me up, because when I think about from whence I've come, I never expected it to be this good, right? We always talk about God's plans better than ours. That's true in my life, I love what we do, and I wake up every day, when I get out of bed and I walk down those stairs and I get ready to come to my office, I think, man, how lucky am I to get to write about the team that I have adored my entire life? What do I get to write about today? How fun is that? I don't ever get up thinking, here we got to go make the donuts again. Got to go write this and deal with the message board and deal with social media. I never, ever, ever feel that way. Ever. Ever. And I think in many respects, one of my dear friends years ago told me this, and it is something that has always stayed with me. My friend Jade told me over coffee one day, said, Steve, you are so much more than a recovering addict and alcoholic. You are more than that. Don't let that define you or limit you. And I had never really considered that. And then we were talking about one day I want to write a book about recovery. And she began to cry. And she said, God gave you this platform for you to tell that story. Everything else that has happened was to elevate you to a platform where you could share what God has done in your life and how God chose to save you. And one of the things that I absolutely believe is a truth in life, not a truism, is the graveyard is half filled with people that didn't get a second chance, and the other half is filled with those that did and didn't take advantage of it. And so I have tried to use my platform for good. Obviously, at times there's some people that come at me, and I can laugh some of that stuff off, but sometimes you got to defend yourself. But the reality of it is I have survived so many hurricanes, I just don't mind the rain anymore. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like I've been through so much. The little stuff like that may be a problem for other people, it's just not a problem for me. I don't live a life of fragility. And I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I am. And so I don't feel the need to kind of lash out at people every time somebody has something critical about me to say. Now, I have some fun with it from time to time. Yeah, I'm a competitor too. But at the end of the day, none of that stuff really matters. At the end of the day, we're all going to be held account for the lives that we've led, right? Simple as that. My goal is to help as many people along the way as I can. And there are some people that'll say, hey, well, so-and-so said this about you. I'm like, man, God bless them, man. God bless them. I hope that they find whatever they're looking for. They're not gonna have it at my expense. I've had some difficult, working relationships at time in my life. I wish them all the best, man. I do. Not at my expense, but I want those folks to have success. I want them to feel like they're doing something worthwhile with their lives. Man, when I think about the totality of my own life, man, if I wanted to go get drunk, I have had plenty of excuses to go do it. If I wanted to go get high again, I've had plenty of excuses to go do it. I just hadn't done it. I've been conspired against. I've been stabbed in the back. I've been lied to, manipulated. Every bit of it. Every bit of it. And every single time that I have placed a limitation on my own recovery, when I said, man, if this ever happened to me, I'd probably go get loaded. Every bit of it has happened. Every bit of it. But somehow I've managed to stay clean and sober. And I share that with you because, again, the moment will pass if we let it. It truly will. But I share these things with you in hopes of giving you some sense of hope. I was a hopeless drug addict. Hopeless drug addict. And I remember, and I get emotional thinking about this, but my mom was probably the only person that didn't turn their back on me. I got some other people that wanted to be involved, just didn't know how. But I remember, and my mom stood up for me. And she fought for her child. And she refused to surrender me to the drugs. And I wrote about that one day on Facebook, kind of a tribute to my mother. And my mom said, I will stand for you even if I am the only one standing. And I hope that you have that person in your life. If you have ideas for a top 10 list, reach out, let us know. Best way to do that is to hit up Roy Samanti, my friend, at Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC67. You can find our great list on Spotify under that same handle. And you can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. We love Campus Bookmart, and why? Because they have the things we want. What do we want? Mom, it's 16 days to Christmas. Not to alarm you, but we want more Mississippi State merchandise. We want maroon and white under the tree. You don't have to wrap it in maroon and white in honor of Jack Crystal. You can use the festive papering, but we want Mississippi State merch. Whether it's that fashionable new quarter zip with the interlocking MSU on it, whether it's a button-up, a polo, or just some things to detail out the fan cave, you can find it at Campus Bookmart. Be sure and visit them next time you're in Starkville, or visit them online today at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. And I'd be remiss. We did our top 10 list, and I didn't mention Kalito Guitars. So let me do that now. Kalito Guitars sponsored the top 10 list, and I was so excited to do the Rockers in Recovery thing that I forgot. So let me slip that in now. Kalito Guitars, your one-stop shop for all your guitar needs. Be sure and check it out today, KalitoGuitars.com. I've got a Steve Vai signature model from them that I absolutely adore, and Steve plays it on stage, which makes me feel even better about it. My arm's starting to feel a little bit better as well. And so I'll be playing again soon, hope to, anyway, as I grab a couple of Aleve right there. But Kalito Guitars, visit them today in person at their expansive showroom in Lake Jackson, Texas, or you can check them out online at KalitoGuitars.com. We got a promo code for you too. It's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson, as you know. That entitles you to some discounts, right? Probably the most extensive discounts that we can offer on the show. You get a 10% discount off their already low price. You get no sales tax if you live in the state of Texas. You get no shipping expense. And they're going to make a 5% donation to the Bulldog Excellence Fund based on your purchase price. Man, what a great opportunity. It's a Mississippi State owned and operated company, owned by Bulldogs, operated by Bulldogs, to provide guitars for Bulldogs and really fans of any school. Be sure and check them out today at KalitoGuitars.com. KalitoGuitars.com, your one-stop shop for all your stringed instrument needs. And we've had so many fans and listeners that have purchased instruments from them and had great success with them. You could be next, whether you're looking for a beginner guitar, professional grade guitar, electric, classical, or acoustic. You can find that in so many other great stringed instruments, along with all the accessories you need. KalitoGuitars.com. Okay. We've had some guys go in the portal, or announced the portal's not officially open. However, we've had some to declare their intentions, and so I want to go over this a little bit too, because I want to provide some context about who is going in the portal, because I already see it, right? I already see, fans out there that are already like, oh my gosh, So let's just kind of run it back here together, okay? Because I want to give you proper context for this. And once the portal opens, we'll have some more numbers to kind of work with about how our numbers relate to the rest of the league. So Jordan Mosley is in the portal. Stonka Burnside is in the portal. Cam Thompson, defensive lineman Terrence Hibbler Jr., wide receiver A.J. Lewis, who hadn't been with the team in months, offensive lineman Jaquin Bolden, wide receiver Jerron Glover, offensive lineman Alex Lopez, who was a walk-on. And then today we had 4 new entrants, offensive lineman Brennan Smith, who was hurt much of the year, defensive lineman Corey Clark, who took a red shirt. He was the guy we signed last year in June that had nowhere to go. Safety Tony Mitchell, and wide receiver Marcus Allen. Mitchell, of course, the guy that's done the most. But I wanted to kind of run this for you just so you guys, let's just take a moment, take a deep breath, okay, with me. Yeah, doesn't that feel good? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Your top 8 pass catchers at Mississippi State for the season 2025. What do they all have in common? They're all transfers. That's right. The top 8 pass catchers for Mississippi State are all transfers. That's Brennan Thompson, Anthony Evans, Seydou Traore, Aiden Williams, Jordan Mosley, Davin Booth, Fluff Bothwell, and Sam West. The next highest pass reception guy is Sam Frisco McGee with 6. Okay? And I love Frisco. But the top 8 guys, and I share that with you because it's important to understand, we're losing some guys to the portal, but we're adding some guys that'll help us. Marcus Allen, one of the more recent entrants into the portal conversation, had 1 catch for 7 yards this year. And I don't say these things to degrade these young men. That's not at all what I'm going to do, okay? I'm just kind of putting that out there just because it's important to understand we're not losing a lot of production, right? I'm having a text. My staff, another guy that I expect to go in the portal. I just saw his name on here. But Marcus Allen, 1 catch for 7. Again, this is not in any way to be degrading to these young men. Some of them were banged up. Some just couldn't get on the field. But I think it's important for you guys to know. Stonka Burnside played in 4 games, didn't make a catch, opted out, elected to redshirt. Jerron Glover played in 6 games, no catches. Cam Thompson played in 3 games, transferred in from Northern Illinois, no catches. Right? And again, you run this back here. I mean, how many of these guys, okay, Jordan Mosley got a year left, right? Not a big contributor this year. Stonka Burnside, Cam Thompson, A.J. Lewis, running through all these receivers, right? You got Jordan out of the portal. Didn't do much this year. But, hey, we've gotten our scholarship money out of Jordan, okay? Stonka Burnside, I'd like for him to stay, but it may be better for him to get out of Starkville. Cam Thompson was the guy we expected to come in and compete for playing time. Didn't do it. A.J. Lewis didn't do anything. Jerron Glover, nothing. Marcus Allen, the 1 catch for 7 yards. So not a lot of offensive production you're losing so far, right? There's no stats for offensive linemen, but, Jaquan Bolden really didn't play any snaps of significance. Brennan Smith was hurt much of the year. And so I think those things are important to understand. Defensively, we've only had a couple guys go in so far in the portal. Terrence Hibbler Jr. being one of them. And Terrence Hibbler was the guy that we were really upset thinking that, hey, he should have had 4 stars next to his name. Maybe we were wrong. Stonka Burnside had 1 tackle this year. And again, if he had played the full complement of games, I'm sure he would have done better. But Terrence Hibbler played in 1 game and had 1 tackle this year. So that's, it's 2 tackles. Defensive lineman Corey Clark is another that we talked about, just hadn't done much. Didn't record a tackle this year. So there he is. Yes, he did. He played in 3 games and had 4 tackles. And obviously he's redshirting, and that's the best thing for him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that either. Another name here. Just kind of getting caught up here with my guys. Tyler Woodard obviously left the team. So they'll likely go in the portal to try to find a way to get things done. But, looking back here, just to kind of to prep you a little bit, okay? Some of these guys kind of voluntarily redshirted on their own. And, Jed Jefferson obviously was hurt this year. We expect him to be back. Rayshawn Thomas is probably a guy that'll, if he can get a waiver, we'll get in the portal, but he played in 6 games. Will Whitson played in just 2 games. We do expect him to get the waiver for the next year and to spend that year at Mississippi State. LaKendrick James only played in 3 games. That's a redshirt year for him. We signed him last year. He redshirted. Maybe he stays with us. Maybe he doesn't. Tyler Woodard played in 2 games. Left the team. I'm sure he'll get in the portal. We mentioned Corey Clark. Ashawn Shepard is another that played in just 2 games. So he maintains the redshirt year. Jabri Stewart is another one, played in 4 games, made 4 tackles. And some of these guys start thinking, hey, if I'm not going to play limited reps, I'm not going to hang around. Or I'm going to redshirt and not waste a year of eligibility. Montrell Chapman played in just 4 games, so that's a redshirt year for him. A.J. Rice is a freshman, so we expect him to be okay. Seth Davis is a guy, too, that I think may go in the portal. I just think that I don't know that Seth is going to come back and be what many hoped he would be. And as Jeff Lebby said earlier this year, he's just still not back 100%. And guys, he got banged up in the 2023 Egg Bowl. So it's been 2 years, and so you got to start considering that aspect of it. What does he elect to do? Luke Kromenhoek obviously came here with intentions on redshirting and did. And so we've got about 35 guys now that can play in the bowl game and still maintain the red shirt. But I just wanted to go over this with you because we have a lot of casual fans out there that don't subscribe to genespage.com, right? And maybe they don't listen to the Boneyard. And so they get into Facebook groups and they start thinking, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. And that's just not the case. And you got a lot of guys out there that didn't contribute a whole lot, that want to contribute. And so the best thing for them is to get in the portal. I liken back to Tobias Hinton, okay? And I love Tobias. I think he's a great young man. I absolutely do. Had a ton of offers coming out of Hattiesburg High School. And at the time that we committed him, people were really jacked, thinking this is going to be great. I can tell you there was some hesitancy about taking the commitment, but we did. He had a good camp. We took him. He was the guy that played edge in high school, but wasn't big enough or long enough to play edge in college. We gave him some time, never played a snap at Mississippi State. He goes to Alcorn State. He's playing there. He's contributing there. He's furthering his education there. That was the right decision to process Tobias Hinton because he would wanted to stay. And if he had stayed, chances are he wasn't going to get on the field. And while going to Alcorn State requires a little bit of humility, and that's nothing against the Braves, but this is a young man that had been in an SEC program for 3 years where everything is available, goes to Alcorn State, a program that doesn't have a ton of finances. So it's a step down from a facility standpoint, a player experience standpoint, but he's playing football. He's playing the game he loves. He has a chance to get on the field, and who knows? Maybe he plays his way into a practice squad spot at some point. With the NFL. I don't think that's going to happen, but you're certainly not going to do it if you never get on the field. And so I see some of the comments out there already. There was a comment today, I can't remember which player it was, but a guy that hadn't made a contribution. Somebody said, oh, he's chasing NIL. Guys, for guys that aren't playing, there's not a lot of NIL money anyway. And so if they want to get on the field, they want to play football, the game they've loved their whole lives, they got to go somewhere else. And so no, like Tobias Hinton, he didn't leave looking for NIL. He left looking for playing time. We've had several others in the last couple of years that's really what it boiled down to, is finding a place to further their education and get on the field. And if they're not going to contribute here, we need the roster spot for somebody that may. And they need an opportunity to go somewhere else where they can play. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's not for you to have a meltdown on social media. And I understand that comes from a good place. But why are we so incredibly up in arms about players that you don't even know their names? I mean, when they committed, you knew them, right? But some of those guys, the biggest contribution they made was to the class ranking. But if they don't make a contribution on the field, we've got to make a decision. There's only so much money to go around. And some places have no rev share to give. So when a guy leaves us, don't automatically assume that it's about a paper chase. It's not about money. It's about opportunity. And so that's where I think we need to help each other. For those of you that listen to the show, those of you that subscribe to Gene's page, is when we have these manufactured misery moments. We're like, oh my gosh, are we going to have a team? Well, of course we're going to have a team. These guys didn't contribute to this year's team. And again, that's not a criticism of them. It just didn't work out. And so we've got to get that roster spot opened up to bring in somebody that can. And so I wanted to give you some context because, again, people see the numbers, and I think we're at, a dozen or 13 right now. And that's just to be expected. And there's some more of these guys, some names that I mentioned, that we fully expect to go in the portal as well. And that was just defense, just kind of looking over here at the offense. We talked about Seth Davis a little bit, but, Seth Davis played in 2 games. Johnny Daniels played in 3. He's redshirt and he's going to hit the portal. Right? I mean, so that's to be understood. I mean, it's only fair. It's just kind of part of the deal. And I'm going to look at receivers again here too. And again, this isn't a criticism of a coach. This is a criticism of a player. This is a facts-only conversation. I look at the wide receivers. We mentioned Johnny Daniels only played in 3 games. Grayson Harris is a freshman. He'll be fine. And, of course, Stonka. And then Cam Thompson. And so you could, these numbers are available to you. When guys voluntarily redshirt, chances are they're going to leave the program and preserve their eligibility. And when I go back and look at the junior college players that we signed last year, we processed some of those guys out. But when you go look at how many of those JUCO guys contributed in year 1, they didn't. Brian Lanier was a D1 bounce back, and he needed a couple years. Really good year for him this year, but it took him a year to kind of acclimate. And so you got to begin to ask yourself, we needed some of those down the roster guys to kind of help us practice and provide some depth. And guys get in late, maybe get some playing time to kind of save some wear and tear on the 2 deep. Those guys are still invaluable to the program in that respect, even if they don't make a snap or a tackle in a game that really matters until it's over. Those guys are part of the program too, and that's their contribution. To provide depth, you need some guys like that too. We're going to sign some down-the-roster guys out of the portal too. And what it's broken down to is that we're building for next year's team. Everything is about the next team. It's not 3 years from now. It's next year's team. And let's just kind of be honest about it. Jeff Lebby's got to win next year. And that's one of the things that I'm kind of proud of with Lebby is it had been real easy. And I don't know if this is the case. Maybe it's in his contract that your top 25 recruiting class, you get a bonus. There are a lot of contracts that have that language in it. It had been easy for Jeff Lebby just to go sign somebody else to get us from 26, 25 to put some more money in his pocket, but that's not what happened. And I think it says a lot about if that's the case, that Leb's like, you know what? I understand another high school guy is not going to make me better next year. And for every other high school guy that I sign over my recruiting plan, that's one less portal guy that I can take. And some of those portal guys are going to be contributors, as you've seen. And some of those guys are going to be depth guys, as you've seen. But you only get a short time in life to play ball. And just kind of looking back to it, our defensive stuff too. We talked about, how great the contributions were on offense. Let's look at. It's kind of a mixed bag, I guess. When we talk about tackles, Jerron Manning, your leading tackler with 85 tackles, transfer from Old Dominion, and many of you panned the signing of Jerron Manning. Oh, why are we taking this guy? 85 tackles, led the team. Nick Mitchell, been with us from high school. Brian Lanier, D1 bounce back, went to JUCO. Isaac Smith's been with us for years. Zachary Tillman, a high school guy. Jalen Smith, a transfer, 45 tackles. Brandon Jennings, 42 tackles, a transfer. Hunter Washington, 37 tackles, a transfer. Darian Gillette, 36 tackles, a transfer. Diego Brumfield, 33 tackles, a transfer. Tyler Lockhart, a freshman, had 33 tackles this year. Kelly Jones had 30 and has made an announcement he plans to return. Malik Sela had 30 tackles, a transfer. Jere Bledsoe, 26 tackles, a transfer. Calvin Dinkins, 25, been with us the whole time, and thank God he was able to play a full season this year. Tony Mitchell, 25 tackles, a transfer. Kedrick Bingley Jones, 23 tackles, a transfer. DJ Reed, 21, transfer. Red Hipler, 20, transfer. Trevion Williams been with us the whole time, 20 tackles. Javen Williams, a transfer from Kennesaw State with 18. I can run all the way through this list if you need me to, but you can see that the bulk of our contributing players, especially on offense, have been transfers. On defense, it's about half and half, and maybe skew a little bit more towards 60-40 in favor of transfers. So as the transfer portal taketh, it also giveth. And so if we're trading out some players that didn't have a lot of production, for guys that do, that's a win-win for everybody. Final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle when you're bringing a large group to town, and you should. You've thought about it. You've seen the movies, the documentaries, the TV shows, and think, man, wouldn't it be great to get everybody together under one roof? We can break bread together. We can recreate together. We can go to a Mississippi State game together and go back and just spend some time, some quality time with the people we love the most. How cool is that? We've done it. We had a great time there last New Year's. I would encourage you to pursue that opportunity as well. When you Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, their Facebook page will pop up, and you can view all the amenities available to you and your guests. That's the full-service kitchen, the wet bar, the back porch area, the fire pit area, plenty of parking. It's the old renovated country club clubhouse out past the Highlands off 182, just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. 6 bedrooms, 2, soon to be 3 baths. Now, when you do that Google search, there's going to be some booking options that pop up. It's very handy, right? You can book through Airbnb or VRBO if you want to. Maybe you got a credit, I don't know. But if you want to save some money, I'm going to give you a credit. Promo code BSR10, Beautiful Steve Robertson 10, BSR10, get you 10% off your stay. Just by listening to the show, you're saving money at the premier place to stay in the Golden Triangle. Whether you're bringing a work group to town midweek, and you'd like to have the whole team under one roof, this is the spot for you. You come in a ball game weekend, you want to have everybody together and so scattered out in 4 and 5 different hotel rooms and Airbnbs, this is the way for you. And I can personally attest what a wonderful place it is to stay. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle, bar none. All right, indulge me if you will. We got basketball coming this weekend. We'll preview those shows on Friday. Who knows what tomorrow will hold for us. Obviously, we'll be covering the All-Star practice on Thursday, so we'll have a lot of that content for you as well. We'll do our best to catch up with all of the Bulldog signees that are in the All-Star games and bring you coverage of that. And again, they've already signed, so there's not doing any recruiting. That's where the recruiting calendar, I think, is a kind of, again, a negative about what we've done. You have this great week of practice where you used to have all the Mississippi State and Ole Miss commitments trying to recruit their friends, and sometimes it worked out. And you had some guys like Tobias Smith, who I spoke to last night. He played for Columbus High School, that made a jump during All-Star practices. And he goes from being a Southern Miss commitment to a Mississippi State signee because people got eyes on him and said, this guy's the real deal. And so we have kind of robbed those student athletes of the opportunity to improve their stock as recruits during All-Star Week. And again, I go back to the argument that I made years ago is that we're really not doing anything positive by having a December signing day. Everybody was all excited about it, and a lot of people hadn't thought it through. When Scott Kennedy and I researched this years ago, we began to talk to coaches and kind of figure out what's the downside of this. One of them said, it negates a senior's ability to improve their draft stock. Because basically you get all these early commitments and then you got to drop somebody to take somebody. And a lot of times when we get into the season, guys are not looking at senior film, they're looking at junior film, figuring out who to offer. And now we got the implementation of the portal. People are like, hey, I got to make a coaching change before the portal opens. So we move it back, and then we move the signing date forward. And so everything, all the collateral damage of the December signing period has negatively impacted everything about college football. All because we wanted to save about 3 weeks worth of recruiting. Because the holidays were dead and the week of the AFCA convention was dead. You only had about 3 weeks worth of recruiting in January. So that's all we've prevented. But all these other unintended consequences are a net negative for college football. So before we get out of here, I wanted to talk a little bit about life. And I have so many people that reach out and say, Steve, I appreciate your transparency. And we're not going to talk about sports the rest of the show. So if you want to turn the show off, my feelings won't be hurt. But as I mentioned, 34 years clean and sober. And I remember those early days. And I just wanted to make sure that we do a couple things here. We're getting some more transfer portal stuff together. I remember how scared I was. I don't scare easy these days. But when I first got into recovery, I remember I had to go to court while I was in rehab. And a lot of people didn't think I was going to come back. They thought either that they would elect to keep me, but thankfully I had a good lawyer and says, hey, while he's out on bond, could we allow him to continue his program of recovery at Pine Grove Recovery? And thankfully, Judge Michael Eubanks agreed to that. And so I was able to complete. I remember going back that day. Everybody was so incredibly excited to see me again. They had kind of said their goodbyes. And I remember the day that I left treatment for good and leaving Pine Grove to go to secondary treatment at a program called Next Step. And there's a lot more freedom at Next Step. You can get a job. You kind of reacclimate. It kind of serves as a halfway house. You still have group home and group therapy and all that kind of stuff and individual counseling. But you can get a job and you can leave, kind of be on your own. You had a curfew. And I was scared to death. I was absolutely scared to death. I was Mr. Recovery in Pine Grove because I had some structure. Because I didn't have to I was protected in there. Now, I could have left at any time. But when I left there, I remember thinking, I don't know if I can do this. And it had nothing to do with being strong. I knew that I had the fortitude to do it. I just didn't know if I had the willingness to do it. And it scared me. And when I was on the hot seat in rehab, that's when everybody kind of gangs up on you and tells you about all your BS, and it's a very uncomfortable position to be in because you feel like everybody's picking on you. In some respects, they are. They're trying to get a reaction from you. And it's a very invaluable part of recovery, you being held accountable. And there are a lot of people today that are not held accountable. And so I'm in there, and all of a sudden, Robert Pevsner was his name. He used to have a license plate V-Smurf, Vanity Smurf. He admitted that his delusions of grandeur had no bounds. But Robert P. basically told me that I'd just been Mr. Joe Cool in treatment, and I hadn't listened to anything. And to be honest with you, I thought maybe if I memorized the 12 steps and I could regurgitate them in a group setting, that they would say, hey, this guy's kind of got it. Let's let him get out of here and we'll focus on somebody else. And thank God they were smarter than me. I couldn't outsmart them. And recovery is the only thing that I haven't been able to just kind of half do, right? Everything else in my life, like in high school, I never brought a book home and still made A's and B's. I went to college and I could write, papers the night before they were due without having to do a ton of research because I could kind of BS my way through it. The only thing in my life that I have not been able to BS my way through is recovery. You have to be all in. If you're not all in, you're not going to make it. And that's not just true for recovery, but it's true for basically everything meaningful in life. You got to completely sell out. And I sold out of resentment, to be honest with you, because Robert Pevsner told me he didn't think I could make it. And he knew what he was doing. He was manipulating me for all the right reasons because he knew that I was stubborn. And he told me, we're teaching your mom how to mourn your loss. And that's one of those things that sticks with me. She's here at Family Week, Steve, and we're teaching her that how she's going to be able to live life without you because you're not going to make it. And so then all of a sudden my ego is challenged. And I'm like, well, I'll show you. And I told him, I'm going to do everything you tell me to do for a year. And I'm going to prove to you that this doesn't work. Well, 34 years later, I'm still trying to prove that it doesn't work. And I just shared this with you because it's important to understand that we do recover. And if you've got people in your life that you feel like maybe they're beyond help, you're wrong. There are some unfortunates that are incapable of being honest with themselves. And there were times I thought that may be me. that maybe I lacked the ability to be completely honest. One of the biggest turning points in my life, and I've shared this with you guys before, it was a guy in Family Week named Rick. And I didn't really care for Rick. Rick had been in rehab like 8 or 9 times. And he had a year of recovery, but he'd been in like extended treatment the whole time. And he was supposed to be there as like a peer. Of all the people to pick, he was the worst one for me, which proved to be the best thing for me. Right? He was the guy that would push my buttons. He's a guy that, I don't think he liked me. I didn't like him. And I said some very hurtful things to Rick. I did. And so when I went, my mom and I had to do the little one-on-one thing, and he goes, hey, you don't act like you're sorry. You read it like it was a book report. And I goes, Rick, I respect the fact that you got a year in recovery, but you got the best year of recovery that your daddy's insurance could pay for. And I don't like you. And before he could respond, my counselor, Sharon Ott, said, and you know what, Steve, you don't have to. It's the first time in my life that I felt that my authentic and genuine feelings had been validated. Because everybody else in the room shrieked, I can't believe he said that. Well, it was honest. And it taught me that it was okay for me to be honest. Now, I could be a little more diplomatic about things, but I was honest. And here's the thing, too. Even now, there's some people I don't like. And I don't pretend. There's some people that I get along with. There's some people I keep the peace with. But there's some people I don't like. And if they ever want to talk about it, I'm happy to tell them why I don't like them. And you know what the flip side of that is? There's some people that don't like me. And you know what? If they're interested in repairing that relationship, I'm all ears, right? 100%. But if we're going to have beef, then let there be beef. But it's going to lie with you, right? But the understanding about all of that, it was one of the most liberating moments of my life. To tell the truth, the pure, unadulterated truth. And to have somebody tell me, you know what, Steve, that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. Because I grew up in a family that's kind of in the guilt installation business, right? You're not supposed to tell people what you think. You only do the gossip thing, right? You only talk about things behind people's back. I'm not built that way. I'm Freddie Robertson's son. And my daddy would tell you exactly how to cow ate the cabbage. That moment changed my life. And the truth of the matter is, if I had not had that moment, I don't think I would be sober today. Because all of a sudden, I had value. I began to build some self-worth. Because yes, my opinions do matter. Yes, my feelings do matter. Yes, I can be honest about what I think and feel and not be judged for it. And my hope is you're there too. Chances are you're not. And that's the most important thing in life, to be able to speak your piece. Because if you don't, it's going to stay with you. And it's going to fester. And it's going to build a resentment. And resentment is the enemy of happiness. And let me tell you this too, resentment's just like pissing down your leg. You're the only person that feels it. The only one. I heard somebody say at a meeting one time, having a resentment against somebody else like drinking poison and thinking they're going to die. Right? It's true. So you can't live with resentment. And there were some people in the very beginning of my recovery, as I began to kind of sober up and kind of have sober thinking and think about things, I began to realize there were some people that had wronged me incredibly. There were apologies that I were never going to get. There were amends that were never going to be made. And I hated people for it. I hated them. And my sponsor, Paul B., God rest his soul, he told me, he said, Steve, I want you to pray for him. I'm like, what? Pray for him? He said, every day I want you, the first thing you do after you ask God to forgive you of your sins and protect you and you pray for your family, I want you to pray for your enemies. And I want you to say, God, I want you to give them the things I want for myself. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. Like, what is he talking about? Pray for these people that have harmed me, these people that have connived, these people that have conspired, these people who stabbed me in the back, these people that basically made sure that I went to jail and they stayed out. I got to pray for these people? Yes. Yes, you do. And every day I did it. I did it and I hated it, and it was a very insincere prayer. And then in time, I began to mean it. And I began to soften my stance about these people. And I began to realize I may never be friends with these people again, but I don't have to harbor resentment in my heart and carry that with me. That's an important aspect of it too. You know, the heaviest things in your wagon sometimes are the things other people put in there, but if you take some time, you can pick them out yourself. You don't have to carry them all the way up the mountain. It changes when you're ready. And probably the most important thing about recovery, and this is not just for people in recovery, you have to learn to process pain in a healthy way, because pain is inevitable. It is absolutely inevitable. I had a friend, and I love her dearly, and I have told her that multiple times today. Her and her family are dealing with something absolutely unspeakable. I'm not going to give you the details. They don't matter. I said, I love you. And it's important that you don't break down. If you want to break down, you call me. And you can break down over the phone. But those family members that need you to be the matriarch in your family, you will not break down around them. You will compartmentalize that, because this is your turn to be the strong one. If everybody is freaking out, then everybody will continue to freak out. You're going to have to process your pain privately, because you're got to be there as an antidote as they're dealing with their pain. That's grown folks' wisdom right there. That's mom and dad wisdom. And that's the kind of stuff that they don't put in a job description when you sign up. You have to be strong for everybody else. You be weak alone. You be weak with your support group. You don't rest your pain on the shoulders of those experiencing a deeper pain. It's an important part of it. That's one of the things that I'm proud of, and I think it's maybe something I was born with and inherited from my dad, and maybe I've just kind of sharpened his saw a little bit over the years. In times of crisis, I don't fall apart. Just like when somebody set that car on fire in my yard, Dana's freaking out, running around, not sure what to do, like a chicken with her head cut off. I said, babe, there's a fire shoot over there. I got to call 911. Either you can call them or you get the garden hose. And I'm on the phone with 911, and yes, it was a very unsettling situation, but I knew exactly what to do. And it's recovery. And so there are people out there that are struggling, and I know because I hear from them regularly. And there are some other ones that I don't hear from, that maybe you hear from. It's important that we love people. And you can love without limits, but you can love with boundaries. Boundaries are good. People that have no incentive to change never will. Never will. You cannot save someone from themselves, but you can decide, this is as far as I'm going. This is where I make my stand. I love you. I will always love you. But acceptance is not approval. I accept that you are the way that you are. I don't approve of all the things that you've done, but I love you. I love you. But I'm not going to let you take the family down with you. When you're ready to come back, you have a home here. But there's a price of poker. And when I got bonded out of jail, my grandmother wrote a contract up that Judge Michael Eubanks made conditions of my release. And the first thing on that list was I would get treatment for my alcoholism. Period. And I was so glad to see it on there because I didn't have to pretend anymore. And guys, when I checked into rehab, I was 6'2", 146 pounds. You see me these days, I'm about 6'2", 200 pounds. Imagine me with 55 pounds less. I had an IV drip in my arm for 3 days. If I hadn't responded day 3, they were going to put me in ICU at Forest General Hospital. And I was praying to die every day. Every day. Because the road home seemed so far. It just seemed to be too arduous. And there was a guy at the end of my bedside. I woke up one day, I'm praying to die, and he's praying to God to save my life. And thankfully that he had a better relationship with God at that point than I did. Because I'm alive today to tell the story. And I've lost a lot of friends along the way. And sometimes it's been very painful. But it's also been a constant reminder to me of what's out there. I'll make the journey to Hattiesburg. I'll pick up my chip on Thursday. It kind of worked out good. All-Star Week is the same week of my sobriety birthday. I'll head down to Hattiesburg, take in practices, go pick up my 34-year chip, and I'll probably cry like a baby because I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm grateful to be alive and to be clean and sober and to have the things that I have and to have the people that I have in my life and to have the platform that I have to share the miracle of recovery. Guys, I'm not special. I'm just stubborn, right? I'm just a stubborn person. And when they told me that I wasn't going to make it, I was determined to prove them wrong. I'm not special. I'm not. God afforded me a second chance at life, and I took advantage of it. And I've made the most of it. And for years and years and years, I was not very transparent about my recovery because I just wanted to fit in. But I never really have. I always felt like, well, Steve, you want to have a beer? No, I don't drink. It's not that I can't drink, I don't drink. There's a difference. But I felt like I was doing a disservice to the still suffering addict by keeping this miracle private. And a friend of mine kind of urged me along the way, kind of unknowingly, to be more transparent. And there are some people in my family that would love for me to be a little less transparent. But this is not about them. This is about the still suffering addict and those who love them. That's why I wrote the book When the Bottom Falls. And I told my mom, I don't want you to read it. Oh, of course I'm going to read it. I don't want you to read it. Well, she read it. And every time she read something she didn't like, she texted me. I said, this is exactly why I didn't want you to read this. She goes, well, you're kind of making me out to be the bad guy here. I said, well, if you keep reading, you're the hero. Okay? And now I think she's bought about 50 copies of that book to give other people. And so maybe you could benefit from reading it as well, whether you're in recovery or not, or maybe you just need a little inspiration, or to just kind of learn a little more about some of the things I've learned along the way. You can go to dutynoblebook.com and you can select When the Bottom Falls along with any of the sports titles you want to. I didn't do all this as an advertisement for that, but that's what the book is about. It's about me recovering from being a hopeless drug addict with really nowhere to turn, to being a guy that's got a platform where anybody can listen. And so I want to thank you for your support. You guys have helped me stay sober. You've helped me stay clean. I feel a bit of an obligation to you guys to be here and to be your eyes and ears. And how cool is it to think back all those years later that I get to cover Mississippi State for a living, you know? My dream was to be a rock star. That didn't pan out for me. That sent me to drug rehab. This is a lot safer. But I feel like we're in this thing together, and I've heard from so many of you over the years that are in recovery, or you know somebody, and I get these people that message me and just say, Steve, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Will you pray for me? And the reminder that I get from all of that is it's not getting any better out there. There's no need for me to go do any further research. I've learned enough. I know that I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, and I know if I go back out, I'm probably not coming back. You know, the drugs are deadlier. You know, the drinks are probably a little tastier, but I'll just take your word for it. This is a much safer way to live. And I love each and every one of you. I do. I love you, whether you love me back or not. I love you, and I want good things to happen to you in your life. And if you ever need help, you reach out. If somebody you love, sometimes if you just need prayer, or if you need some advice, or you need somebody to get into treatment somewhere, we can help you with that. We can. I got a network of people just waiting for the call. It's like, hey, Steve, I get these messages all the time from people that work in the industry. I mean, if you know somebody that needs treatment, just let us know. And I'm very grateful to be in a platform where I can share that. And we have helped so many people over the years. And we don't put the names or the statistics out there because it's not a vanity project. It's about us helping other people find a new way to live. And maybe that's you. Maybe it is. But of all the things that I've written, the one book that I had to write was When the Bottom Falls. And the last chapter, chapter 19, may be the most important words that I ever write. But you got to read the book in its entirety. To make chapter 19 make sense, you got to read it all the way through. But when I dropped off that book to Francis Ami and Mitzi Banks Steele, Duty Noble's nieces, I just like, hey, this is the last book I wrote. You can kind of get an idea of what kind of writer I am. And Mitzi said, you know what, I read that chapter 19, and any time that I need encouragement, I'm gonna pull it out and read that again. That's the reason that I wrote it. And I cried the whole way through writing that chapter because I knew that it was the last words that I may ever write to the still suffering addict. And I poured my heart and soul into that book. And I can die at some point knowing that I have done my part to help the still suffering addict and all those who love them, because I've left a little bit of a roadmap, a sojourner's truth, if you will, about what it takes to get sober and stay sober. And I thank God for that. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.